The deep silence of space was shattered by the distant hum of scanners, the cold instruments of alien eyes locked onto Earth's warship. Far away, on a dimly lit command bridge of the alien vessel, analysts stared at the glowing screens, watching as data poured in. The ship they were scanning was unlike any they'd ever encountered. Massive, powerful, and radiating an aura of sheer destructive potential. At first glance, it was just another warship, a floating fortress of steel and firepower. But as the alien scientists delved deeper into the scans, the truth began to emerge. Hidden beneath layers of armor, cloaked in electromagnetic fields, were weapons so advanced they bent the laws of physics. The ship was not just a war machine. It was a symbol of Earth's will to fight back, to survive, and to dominate if necessary. "We've underestimated humanity," whispered one of the officers, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "They've weaponized destruction itself." Their leader, a hardened veteran of countless interstellar conflicts, leaned forward, his voice cold and sharp. "If that ship is deployed, our fleet will be annihilated before we can even raise shields. This is a turning point. We must reconsider our strategy." Back on Earth, the crew aboard the warship went about their duties with practiced precision. The captain, Commander Harper, stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak past. She felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. This ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a promise that humanity wouldn't go quietly into the void. Her eyes caught the flicker of a message from intelligence. The enemy was aware of the ship, and they feared it. That knowledge was a small comfort. It meant Earth's work was paying off, that the galaxy was waking up to the fact that humans were no longer the ones to be dismissed or crushed. Inside the engineering bay, technicians ran diagnostics on the ship's core systems. The fusion reactors pulsed with power, feeding the monstrous weapons that could level entire fleets. But it wasn't just brute force. There was finesse here, too. Defense systems that could adapt, AI that learned, and a crew trained not just to fight, but to think. "Commander," called out Lieutenant Chen from the tactical station, "scanners show multiple enemy fleets mobilizing near the outer rim. They're moving fast. Too fast." Harper's jaw tightened. "They think they can outpace us. Let them come." As the ship surged forward, cutting through the darkness of space, the tension grew. Both sides knew a battle was inevitable, but what neither fully grasped was how deeply this warship would change the course of the conflict. Because this wasn't just a fight for territory or resources. It was a test of survival, a clash of wills between an underestimated species and an empire that thought itself invincible. And when they scanned Earth's warship and saw the destruction waiting ahead, they realized something terrifying. Humanity was ready. The dark expanse of space was a canvas painted with countless stars, but none of them shone brighter or more threatening than Earth's warship. As it sliced through the void, its engines thrummed with power, a steady heartbeat echoing the resolve of its crew inside. Commander Harper stood firm on the bridge, eyes fixed ahead, knowing that every second brought them closer to a confrontation that would test not just technology, but the spirit of humanity itself. The alien fleets converging on the outer rim were unlike anything Earth had faced before. The scans had revealed not just ships, but entire battle groups, formations designed to overwhelm and crush. Yet, despite the scale of the threat, Harper felt a calm determination settle over her. Years of training, countless drills, and the cutting-edge technology of their warship were their advantages. Advantages no one had predicted Earth could master so swiftly. Below decks, the ship buzzed with controlled energy. Engineers monitored the fusion reactors, ensuring the immense power core remained stable as it fed the ship's weapons and defense systems. The warship wasn't just a floating cannon, it was a complex organism of machine and mind, a fusion of human ingenuity and relentless ambition. Lieutenant Chen, seated at the tactical station, traced the movements of enemy ships on her display. "Multiple vectors converging fast. They're trying to encircle us, Commander." Harper nodded, her voice steady. "Let them. They think it will break our formation. But this ship was built for this kind of fight." On the enemy command vessel, the mood was far from confident. Their scanners had just completed a deep scan of the warship, peeling back every layer of stealth and shield. The revelation had sent shockwaves through their command. This wasn't just a warship. They realized it was a symbol of humanity's new place in the cosmos, a declaration of their refusal to be crushed. "The humans have broken every rule of warfare," said the alien commander, his voice tight with disbelief. "Their technology, it's beyond anything we anticipated. If this warship enters battle, it will be the end of our fleet." His advisors muttered among themselves, their faces pale beneath their exoskeletal armor. The warship's weapons array was terrifying. Quantum cannons capable of disintegrating enemy vessels at a molecular level, adaptive shields that changed frequency to absorb attacks before they could land, and a neural AI system that processed battlefield data faster than any organic mind. "They're not just fighting to survive," one analyst said grimly. "They're fighting to redefine the rules of engagement." Back on Earth's warship, the crew prepared for what was to come. Communications officers relayed encrypted messages to Earth Command, while the medical bay readied itself for casualties that might never come. The ship's AI, a sophisticated neural network named Aegis, continuously scanned for threats, optimizing every system to respond to incoming attacks. Harper took a moment to walk through the corridors, checking in with her officers. The atmosphere was tense, but focused. There was no room for panic here, only precision. She stopped by the weapons control room, where Captain Malik and his team ran final calibrations. "The quantum cannons are ready, Commander," Malik reported, eyes sharp. "Aegis has optimized the targeting algorithms. We can engage multiple targets simultaneously, with pinpoint accuracy." Harper smiled faintly. "Good, because we won't get a second chance." Hours passed as the ship closed in on the outer rim. Enemy fleets began to emerge from behind asteroid belts and nebulas, their dark shapes blotting out stars like an approaching storm. The warship's scanners locked onto hundreds of hostile vessels, from swift attack frigates to colossal dreadnoughts. "Commander, the enemy is initiating their attack formation," Chen announced. "They're deploying fighter squadrons and bombers to soften our defenses before the main fleet arrives." Harper's mind raced through tactics. The warship's strength wasn't just its weapons, it was its crew's ability to adapt and improvise. "Launch countermeasures. Activate point defense systems. Let the fighters come. We'll break their wave." The first clash erupted like thunder in the void. Swarms of enemy fighters darted toward the warship, their sleek forms weaving through bursts of laser fire. The warship responded with a ballet of destruction. Point defense turrets spun up, automated drones engaged, and quantum blasts tore through the enemy ranks. Despite the chaos, Harper maintained her calm. Every shot was calculated, every maneuver precise. The crew moved as one, their training and trust in the ship a shield as strong as any armor. But the enemy was relentless. As fighters fell, more poured in, and the warship's shields began to flicker under the sustained assault. On the bridge, warning lights flashed. "Shields at 50%, Chen reported, voice steady but urgent. "Incoming salvo from dreadnoughts. They're preparing a concentrated strike." Harper's heart pounded, but she refused to show it. "Aegis, prioritize shield modulation. Prepare to deploy the reactive armor." The ship shuddered, as massive energy blasts struck its hull. Sparks flew from damaged panels, and the air filled with the scent of ozone. But the warship held, its systems adapting in real time to absorb and deflect the punishment. Below decks, engineers worked feverishly, repairing damage even as it happened. The fusion core pulsed, feeding the ship's heart with power, and the AI's voice echoed through the corridors, a calm guide amidst the storm. "Damage contained in Sector 4. Life support stable. Weapon systems at 95%. Harper gritted her teeth. The fight was far from over. She knew the enemy had more tricks up their sleeves, more firepower ready to unleash. But she also knew something else. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't just their technology. It was their will to survive, to fight against all odds. As the battle raged on, something shifted in the void. The warship's scanners picked up an unusual energy signature, a surge of power unlike any they'd seen before. Aegis quickly analyzed it and alerted the bridge. "Commander, the enemy is activating a superweapon. Energy buildup detected on multiple dreadnoughts." Harper's eyes narrowed. "This ends now. Prepare to fire the main quantum cannon. Target the superweapon generators." The crew sprang into action. The warship charged its primary weapon, drawing energy from the fusion core with a low, resonant hum that filled the ship. Outside, the enemy's superweapon glowed with deadly intent, a beacon of impending devastation. Seconds stretched into an eternity as the warship aimed, calculating trajectories, adjusting for shield interference, and predicting enemy evasive maneuvers. Then, with a blinding flash, the quantum cannon fired, a beam of pure energy that tore through the darkness, striking the superweapon with devastating precision. The explosion was cataclysmic. Shockwaves rippled through space, shredding enemy vessels caught too close. The superweapon was destroyed, its threat extinguished in an instant. But the victory was bittersweet. The enemy's remaining forces, enraged and desperate, regrouped for a final assault. The warship's shields were faltering, and damage control teams raced against time to keep the ship operational. Harper stood on the bridge, watching the battlefield unfold before her eyes. She knew this fight was just the beginning, a brutal war of attrition where every decision meant life or death. Yet, even as destruction loomed, hope burned bright. Earth's warship was more than steel and firepower. It was a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit, a promise that no matter the odds, they would never back down. Because when the galaxy scanned Earth's warship and saw the destruction waiting ahead, they saw something else too, the unstoppable force of humanity itself. The battlefield in space had transformed into a chaotic dance of light and metal. Earth's warship, battered but unbroken, drifted through the debris of shattered enemy vessels. The explosion of the superweapon had sent shock waves rippling across the enemy fleet. But it hadn't ended the fight. It had only changed its shape. Commander Harper stood at the center of the bridge, her gaze steady but alert. The warship's AI, Aegis, continuously fed her new data, shifting the tactical picture with every passing moment. She knew the enemy would not retreat. They were cornered, desperate, and deadly. The final assault was coming, and Earth's warship had to be ready. Lieutenant Chen, still at the tactical station, tapped furiously on her console, rerouting power and recalculating enemy trajectories. "Commander, they're launching boarding pods, small crafts aimed at breaching our hull. They want to take us from the inside." Harper frowned. "We've trained for this. Activate internal defenses and lockdown protocols. Let them try." Below decks, in the vast corridors and engineering bays, the crew braced for impact. Soldiers armed with pulse rifles and energy shields took their positions, ready to repel any intruders. The ship's internal sensors began to scan for breaches, lighting the hallways with a cold blue glow that signaled lockdown was imminent. Back on the bridge, Aegis projected the enemy's movements in real time. The boarding pods tore through the void like deadly hornets, aiming for critical entry points. As one pod slammed into the hull with a burst of energy, alarms blared through the ship. The blast was contained quickly, but Harper knew it was only the first of many. "Deploy security teams to Sector 7 and 9. Seal all bulkheads," she ordered. "We're not letting them get inside." The soldiers moved swiftly, their boots echoing in the long corridors as they took up defensive positions. The hum of the ship's power systems was a constant reminder of the stakes. If the enemy breached the hull and sabotaged the reactors, the warship would be lost. In the midst of the chaos, Harper found a moment to speak with Captain Malik, who had taken command of the tactical defense. "How's the weapons system holding up?" Malik's voice was calm but firm. "We're still at 80% efficiency. The quantum cannons are ready to fire on your command. Point defenses are picking off boarding pods before they reach the ship, but we can't keep this up forever." Harper nodded. "We'll need a decisive strike soon. Let's not waste this fight." Meanwhile, deep in the enemy fleet, their commanders were growing increasingly frantic. Their plans to crush Earth's warship had failed, and now their own survival was at risk. The loss of their superweapon had shifted the balance, but they still outnumbered the humans. If they could overwhelm the warship through sheer force and infiltration, they could still claim victory. The enemy dispatched waves of reinforcements, heavily armed frigates, relentless fighters, and more boarding pods. The warship's shields flickered under the sustained bombardment. Inside the ship, engineers worked frantically, rerouting power and sealing off damaged sections to keep the vessel operational. Harper walked the bridge, feeling the weight of every decision. Each command was a gamble, every order a matter of life and death. Yet, she couldn't allow fear to cloud her judgment. Humanity was counting on her, on the crew, on this ship to hold the line. Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up an anomaly. A shadow moved through the debris field, a massive, heavily armored enemy dreadnought, faster than expected, closing in on the warship's rear flank. "Commander," Chen warned, "we have a capital ship sneaking around our position. If it reaches our engines, it could cripple us." Harper's mind raced. "Divert all available firepower to intercept. Target its engines and weapon systems. We can't let it get close." The bridge erupted into coordinated chaos as weapon systems locked onto the approaching dreadnought. The warship unleashed a barrage of plasma torpedoes and quantum blasts, but the enemy vessel absorbed much of the damage with reinforced shields. The dreadnought retaliated with a barrage of heavy missiles, forcing the warship to activate emergency evasive maneuvers. The ship twisted and turned through the asteroid field, narrowly dodging the deadly salvo. "Shields down to 30%, Chen shouted, sweat beading on her brow. "If we lose them, the hull won't hold." Harper's jaw clenched. "Aegis, activate emergency shield boosters. Target the dreadnought's weapon systems with everything we have." The AI hummed with calculated precision, redirecting energy and optimizing defense. The warship's main cannon charged again, glowing with deadly intensity. "Fire when ready," Harper commanded. A beam of quantum energy shot through space, striking the dreadnought's engine core. The enemy ship shuddered violently, sparks and debris trailing as it slowed. But the cost was high. The warship had taken heavy damage, and its crew was pushed to the limit. In the medical bay, doctors and medics moved quickly, tending to wounded soldiers and technicians. The harsh reality of war was visible here, the faces of those who had fought, the sacrifices made for survival. Yet, despite the pain and loss, the spirit of the crew remained unbroken. Back on the bridge, Harper knew the battle was far from over. The enemy was regrouping, adapting to Earth's warship's tactics. The boarding attacks continued, relentless in their intensity. The ship's corridors became battlegrounds as security teams engaged intruders in brutal close-quarters combat. Harper called for a status update. Aegis, how are our internal defenses holding? The AI's voice was steady, but grave. Boarding breaches contained, but ongoing. Casualties increasing in Sectors 7 and 9. Structural integrity stable, but deteriorating in isolated areas. Harper's heart pounded. They had to end this before the ship became a prison. She turned to Malik. Prepare for a counter-offensive. We'll use the ship's hangar bay to deploy boarding fighters. Take the fight to them. Malik nodded. Understood. We'll clear the boarding pods before they can regroup. The hangar bay came alive with activity as fighters launched into space, weaving through the debris to intercept enemy pods. The battle extended beyond the ship's hull, a deadly ballet of maneuvering and firepower. As the fighters engaged, the boarding teams pushed back the intruders, reclaiming lost ground in the ship's corridors. Every inch of space was contested fiercely, with neither side willing to yield. Harper's thoughts drifted for a moment to Earth. The blue planet spinning silently in the distance. This warship was humanity's shield, its sword. If it fell, the consequences would be devastating. But if it held, it would signal that humanity was no longer a passive player in the galaxy's brutal game. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected a new threat. A surge of energy, unlike anything seen before, emanated from the enemy fleet's command ship. Aegis analyzed it quickly. Commander, the enemy has initiated a forbidden weapon, an energy pulse designed to disable our systems. Harper's eyes widened. Divert power to shield modulation. Prepare to absorb the pulse. The ship trembled as the energy wave struck, systems flickering and alarms ringing. For a tense moment, everything hung in the balance. Communications faltered, weapon targeting wavered, and the lights dimmed. But Aegis worked tirelessly, stabilizing the systems and rerouting power. Slowly, the ship regained its footing. Systems stabilizing. No critical failures detected, the AI reported. Harper exhaled sharply. Good, let them try their worst. We'll stand. The battle had reached a fever pitch, the warship a beacon of defiance against overwhelming odds. Every crew member knew the stakes, the price of failure. Yet, within the chaos, a fierce hope burned, a belief that humanity could endure, fight back, and change the course of history. As the warship prepared for the next wave of attacks, Harper looked around at her crew, tired but resolute. This is our moment, she said quietly. We fight not just for survival, but for the future of all humanity. Outside, the stars seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see who would emerge victorious from the dark battlefield. The warship's corridors echoed with the sounds of combat, energy blasts, shouted commands, and the heavy footfalls of soldiers fighting tooth and nail against the invading boarding teams. The enemy was relentless, but so were the defenders of Earth's last great warship. Each hallway was a battleground, each door a front line in a war fought within metal walls. Commander Harper moved through the command deck, a steady calm amidst the storm. Her every decision rippled through the ship like waves, affecting the lives of everyone aboard. On one side, the tactical officers coordinated the defense. On the other, engineers patched the wounds of the ship, while medical staff prepared for the injured. Commander, Lieutenant Chen reported urgently from her station. The boarding pods have escalated their assault. They've deployed a new type of drone, small, agile, and designed for sabotage. They're targeting critical systems, life support, engine control, and weapon arrays. Harper's eyes narrowed. Contain the breaches and prioritize shielding vital systems. Send security teams to neutralize those drones before they cause irreparable damage. The ship's AI, Aegis, analyzed the situation rapidly, rerouting power to reinforce the targeted systems and activating internal defense turrets. Despite these efforts, the drones were proving difficult to track and destroy. Their small size and speed made them deadly adversaries. Meanwhile, in the engine room, the atmosphere was tense. Technicians worked feverishly to keep the fusion reactors stable. Sparks flew from damaged conduits as emergency repairs were made, but the crew remained resolute. Chief Engineer Ramos wiped the sweat from his brow, barking orders to his team. "We can't let this ship go dark. Not now. Keep those reactors humming." Back on the bridge, Harper glanced at the energy readouts and shield status. The warship's shields were down to 20%. One sustained hit from the enemy's heavy weapons could cripple them. Yet despite the damage, the ship's weapon systems were still operational. "Captain Malik, what's the status on the quantum cannons? Can we fire another round soon?" Malik's fingers flew over the controls. "Charging now, Commander. We'll have a full blast ready in 30 seconds. Harper's mind raced. She needed to buy time for the crew to deal with the boarding threat and keep the ship alive. "Good. Hold fire until the boarding pods are neutralized. We need to clear the decks before we can bring down the heavy weapons." The tension in the ship was palpable, the seconds stretching like hours as everyone fought for survival. The enemy's boarding teams pressed deeper into the ship, attempting to sever the command chain and sabotage critical functions. The corridors echoed with close quarters combat, the crackle of pulse rifles, the hum of energy swords, and the grunts of soldiers locked in brutal struggle. Harper's comm beeped. It was Lieutenant Navarro, the leader of the security teams fighting inside the ship. "Commander, we're pinned down near the engine control room. Enemy drones have disabled part of our life support system. We're losing breathable air fast." Harper's heart sank, but her voice remained steady. "Hold your position. We're sending reinforcements. Aegis, initiate emergency atmospheric purges to those sections. Get those systems back online." The AI responded instantly, diverting power and activating backup systems to flush the contaminated air and restore life support. But it was a race against time. The enemy knew exactly where to strike hardest. Outside the ship, the battle raged on. The warship's hangar bay was a flurry of activity as fighters launched and returned, engaging enemy craft with desperate ferocity. Despite the damage, the warship held its ground, its weapons tearing through enemy formations. Then, a new threat emerged. Sensors detected a massive enemy cruiser, far larger and more heavily armed than anything they'd faced so far, closing in on the warship's flank. Its energy signatures were ominous, a clear sign it carried devastating weapons capable of breaching the warship's weakened shields. "Commander," Chen warned, "the cruiser is preparing to fire a concentrated energy beam. If it hits, our shields won't survive." Harper gritted her teeth. "Divert all available power to shield boosters. Target its weapon systems with everything we've got. We're not going down without a fight." The warship unleashed its full arsenal. Quantum cannons, plasma turrets, and missile batteries converged on the enemy cruiser. For a moment, it seemed the assault might succeed. The cruiser's shields flickered, and sparks flew from its hull. But the enemy was prepared. The cruiser's energy beam fired, a blinding lance of destructive power aimed directly at the warship's heart. The shields held, but only just. The blast tore through the outer defenses, shaking the ship violently. Alarms screamed as power fluctuations spread throughout the vessel. Systems failed and rebooted erratically. In the engine room, a coolant leak triggered a fire, sending smoke billowing into the corridors. "Damage report," Harper demanded. "Multiple systems offline," Malik replied grimly. "Weapons reduced to 50% efficiency. Engines at 70%. Life support compromised in sectors 7 and 9. Harper took a deep breath, fighting back the rising tide of exhaustion. "We'll hold. We have to." The crew's resolve was tested as never before. Security teams continued to push back the boarding pods, slowly regaining control of vital areas. The medical bay overflowed with the wounded, But medics worked tirelessly, saving lives despite the chaos. In a quiet moment, Harper sought out Lieutenant Chen. "How are we holding on sensors? Any sign of reinforcements?" Chen shook her head. "Nothing yet, Commander. We're alone out here." Harper's gaze hardened. "Then we make our own reinforcements. We fight smarter and harder. We show the galaxy what humanity is made of." Back in the depths of the ship, the boarding battle reached a critical point. Lieutenant Navarro and his team were trapped, surrounded by enemy drones in a narrow corridor. "We're outnumbered and outgunned," Navarro radioed, requesting immediate extraction or support. Harper's voice came through the comm, steady and commanding. "Hold your ground. Reinforcements are en route. You're not alone." The response was a coordinated assault by security teams armed with advanced weaponry and tactical drones. The enemy boarding parties were driven back with heavy casualties. Navarro's team regrouped, battered but alive. As the warship limped through the battlefield, damage control crews patched hull breaches and stabilized systems. The fusion reactors glowed fiercely, the heart of the ship beating on against overwhelming odds. Harper stood on the bridge, watching the stars beyond. This fight was not just for survival, it was for the soul of humanity. Every breath, every shot fired, every life lost was a testament to their refusal to be conquered. And though the enemy was fierce, their spirits unyielding, the warship carried the unbreakable will of a species that had faced extinction before and had risen stronger. The battle was far from over, but Earth's warship would fight on. The battered warship groaned as it pushed forward through the void, a battered giant refusing to fall. Commander Harper stood firm on the bridge, her eyes never leaving the chaotic space beyond. The distant flashes of enemy fire, the twisting shapes of fighters and dreadnoughts locked in deadly dance, were all reminders of the brutal fight raging around them. But what pressed most heavily on her mind was the toll the battle was taking inside the ship. The boarding attacks had been relentless. Throughout the narrow corridors, soldiers and security teams fought tooth and nail, repelling wave after wave of intruders. The ship's vital systems had been damaged in multiple locations, but every time a breach threatened critical infrastructure, repair teams raced against time to seal it. Lieutenant Navarro's voice crackled over the comm, weary but determined. "Commander, our team is holding the aft engine corridor. We've cleared several enemy pods, but the pressure isn't letting up. We need reinforcements and medical evacuation for the wounded." Harper's mind calculated rapidly. Resources were stretched thin, and every decision meant risking lives. "Reinforcements are en route. Medics are prioritizing evacuations. Hold fast, Navarro." The crew's exhaustion was palpable, but Harper refused to let despair take root. She had seen what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge, how their resilience turned the tide in impossible situations, and she knew this battle would be no different. On the bridge, Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew over the tactical displays. Enemy vessels were regrouping, forming tighter formations and preparing for another assault. Intelligence reports indicated the arrival of an enemy strike group. Smaller, faster ships, designed for hit-and-run attacks, meant to outmaneuver and cripple larger warships. "Commander," Chen warned, "the strike group is approaching from multiple vectors. They're trying to flank us and hit vulnerable points. If they succeed, our damaged sections could be exploited." Harper nodded, her mind working through the possibilities. "Prepare to engage. Use the ship's maneuverability to our advantage. We may be damaged, but we're not out of the fight." The warship shifted course, engines straining as they propelled the vessel through a field of floating debris, remnants of earlier battles. The damaged hull creaked under stress, but the ship responded, adapting with the precision of a living creature. The first wave of enemy strike ships darted forward like deadly hornets. Their sleek designs allowed them to slip past some of the warship's defenses, launching plasma torpedoes and energy missiles aimed at weakened sections. "Shields down to 15%, Chen reported grimly. "We can't take much more." Harper's jaw tightened. "Activate emergency shield boosters. Fire at will. Target their missile launchers first." The warship's weapons roared to life. Quantum cannons pulsed, lighting up the void with deadly precision. Point defense turrets tracked and destroyed incoming projectiles, while plasma turrets tore through enemy fighters. Despite the damage, the crew's coordination was flawless. Each crew member played their part with unwavering focus, their resolve steeling as the battle intensified. Below decks, the security teams pushed back boarding parties inch by inch. In one corridor, Sergeant Daniels found himself face to face with a squad of enemy drones. His pulse rifle jammed, leaving him no choice but to fight with a combat knife and sheer determination. "Come on, you bastards!" he growled, lunging into the fray. His teammates rallied, pushing the invaders back and sealing the breach behind them. Elsewhere, medics worked tirelessly to stabilize the wounded. The medical bay was overcrowded, the air thick with tension and the scent of antiseptics. Dr. Voss, a seasoned combat medic, moved swiftly between patients, her hand steady despite the exhaustion. "We'll get through this," she whispered to a young soldier clutching a bleeding arm. "Just hold on." Back on the bridge, Harper's eyes were drawn to the communications console. Earth was silent. No reinforcements, no new orders. The galaxy was watching this fight unfold, and for now, humanity stood alone. The enemy strike group pressed harder, their ships weaving through the warship's defenses and launching coordinated attacks on critical systems. "Life support failing in sectors 4 and 6, Chen reported urgently. "If those systems go down, parts of the ship could become uninhabitable." Harper's mind raced. Deploy damage control teams immediately. Divert all non-essential power to life support systems. We can't afford to lose any more ground. The crew answered the call, moving quickly through the ship to repair and stabilize. Engineers patched ruptured conduits, restored atmospheric controls, and fought to keep the fusion reactors from overheating. Despite the chaos, moments of humanity shone through. In one hallway, 2 soldiers helped a wounded comrade to safety, their faces grim but determined. In the mess hall, a few crew members shared quiet words of encouragement, their spirits bolstered by small acts of kindness. On the bridge, Harper felt the weight of every life aboard the ship pressing down on her. She was the commander, but the responsibility was shared by everyone. Together, they had to hold the line. Suddenly, the warship's sensors picked up a new threat, a massive energy buildup near the enemy's flagship. Aegis analyzed the data and sent a warning. "Commander, the enemy flagship is charging a devastating energy pulse. If unleashed, it could cripple or destroy our warship." Harper's eyes sharpened. "We can't let that happen. Target their flagship with everything. Coordinate with all weapon systems and fighters. We need to disrupt their charge." The bridge exploded into coordinated action. Quantum cannons fired volleys of concentrated energy, fighters swarmed enemy vessels, and missiles streaked through space. The flagship shuddered under the assault, but its energy buildup continued. The seconds stretched taut, the tension unbearable. Then, with a blinding flash, the flagship released its energy pulse. The warship rocked violently, systems failing and lights flickering. For a heartbeat, everything went dark. Aegis's voice cut through the silence. "Emergency protocols activated. Systems stabilizing." Slowly the ship's lights returned, systems rebooted, and the crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. Harper's voice was steady, resolute. "We survived their worst. Now we finish this." The warship's remaining strength surged forward, weapons blazing. The enemy fleet faltered under the relentless assault, their formations breaking apart. On the bridge, Harper allowed herself a moment to look out at the stars, witnesses to the brutal struggle. This was more than a battle. It was a statement. Humanity would not be conquered. They would fight, endure, and rise. And as long as this warship sailed the void, hope remained. The warship groaned under the strain of the battle, but refused to yield. Commander Harper stood on the bridge, feeling the vibration through the deck plates beneath her feet, a reminder of both the ship's strength and its vulnerability. The enemy was regrouping, battered but not broken, and every second gained was a precious chance to turn the tide. "Lieutenant Chen," Harper said, her voice steady but urgent, "give me a full damage report. How long until we can restore full shield capacity?" Chen's eyes flickered across the tactical displays. "Shields are still at 10%, Commander. Damage control teams have contained most breaches, but we're dealing with structural fatigue in several hull sections. It'll take hours to restore full shields, and we don't have that kind of time." Harper's jaw tightened. "Then we have to fight with what we've got. Prepare the quantum cannons and plasma turrets for rapid fire. We'll wear them down." As the crew scrambled to obey, a new alert blinked on the console, an unidentified signal emanating from deep within the warship's core systems. "Commander, we have a security breach inside the ship," Chen reported grimly. "A high-level hacker has infiltrated our AI network. Someone's trying to disable Aegis from within." Harper's heart skipped. "Isolate the breach. Activate counter-intrusion protocols." "Already in progress," Chen replied. "But it's sophisticated. Whoever it is knows our systems well." In the ship's shadowed corridors, far from the bridge, a figure moved swiftly and silently. Clad in a stealth suit that blended seamlessly with the dim lighting, the intruder slipped past locked bulkheads and security patrols with ease. This was no ordinary enemy soldier. This was a specialist, an expert in electronic warfare, sabotage, and subterfuge. The warship's defenders had been so focused on the boarding pods and external assaults that this threat had slipped through the cracks. In a hidden maintenance chamber, the intruder connected a compact device to a terminal, fingers dancing over holographic controls. The device pulsed softly as it fed malicious code into the ship's AI network. Back on the bridge, Harper watched the displays anxiously. "Aegis, report status." The AI's voice was steady but strained. System integrity at 70%. Intrusion detected and partially contained. Countermeasures deployed. Harper knew the ship's AI was fighting a silent battle, one that could cripple their defenses if it lost. She turned to Chen. "Can we identify the source?" Chen nodded, her fingers flying. "Yes, but it's masked through multiple relay nodes. Tracing will take time." Harper's mind raced. Time was the one thing they couldn't afford. The enemy's strike group was regrouping outside, preparing for another assault, and now their ship's very heart was under threat from within. "Divert additional cyber defense resources to Aegis," Harper ordered. "We can't lose control of our systems." Meanwhile, in the security corridors, patrols increased, but the intruder remained elusive. The stealth suit's technology rendered them nearly invisible to conventional sensors, and their knowledge of the ship's layout gave them an edge. Elsewhere, the crew continued their struggle. Repair teams patched hull breaches under fire. Medical personnel tended to the injured, their faces etched with exhaustion and determination. Every corner of the ship echoed with the sounds of war and survival. In the tactical room, Captain Malik coordinated the defense, eyes sharp. "Commander, the enemy is launching a coordinated strike from 3 vectors. They're trying to exploit our weakened shields and damaged systems." Harper nodded. "We'll meet them head-on. Aegis, coordinate weapons fire. Let's show them humanity's resolve." The warship shuddered as enemy fire slammed against its weakened shields. The battle raged with ferocity. Quantum beams lanced out, plasma bolts streaked through space, and missile barrages lit up the darkness. Amid the chaos, Harper's thoughts flickered to the hacker inside their ship. Whoever they were, their actions could cost lives, if not stopped. "Lieutenant Chen," Harper said quietly, "keep me updated on that trace." Minutes passed like hours as Chen worked. Then a breakthrough. "Commander, we've pinpointed the intruder's location, Sector 12, near the lower maintenance shafts." Harper nodded. "Send a security team. Disarm and detain. No exceptions." A squad of elite soldiers moved swiftly, their boots echoing through the narrow corridors. They approached the maintenance shaft, weapons ready. Suddenly, the intruder appeared, their suit shimmering as they activated a cloaking device. The security team opened fire, but their rounds passed harmlessly through the shimmer. A tense standoff followed, then the intruder struck, a swift, brutal assault disabling several soldiers before retreating deeper into the ship. Back on the bridge, Harper clenched her fists. "We can't let them slip away. Prepare a lockdown of Sector 12. As the chase intensified, the warship's battle outside took a critical turn. The enemy's strike group launched a massive assault on the port side, exploiting the damaged shields. "Shields failing on port side," Chen reported urgently. "If they break through, it'll be catastrophic." Harper weighed her options. She could order a risky maneuver, an aggressive turn to bring the starboard cannons to bear and draw enemy fire away from the port. It was dangerous, but it might buy them precious time. "Execute evasive maneuver, Gamma," she ordered. The ship lurched, thrusters roaring as it twisted through space. Enemy fire rained down on the starboard side, but the maneuver worked. The cannons opened up a devastating barrage that tore through the attacking ships. But the victory was costly. The warship's structural integrity was strained, and more systems flickered offline. Inside the ship, the intruder's sabotage attempts intensified. Power fluctuations and system glitches hampered the crew's efforts. Harper felt the pressure mounting. This was no longer just a battle of weapons. It was a war for control of their own ship. In a rare, quiet moment, Harper allowed herself a breath. Her mind wandered to Earth, blue and fragile, a world worth fighting for. She thought of her crew, of humanity's stubborn spirit that refused to bow. "We'll make it through this," she whispered to herself. "We have to." The fight was far from over, but as long as the warship sailed the stars, hope endured. The warship's groan of strain reverberated through the hull as it pushed through the void, battered but unbroken. Commander Harper stood rigid on the bridge, her eyes scanning the holographic displays that flickered with warnings and incoming data. Around her, the crew moved swiftly, but with careful precision, each member a vital cog in this massive machine of war and survival. Lieutenant Chen's voice cut through the tension, steady, yet edged with urgency. "Commander, our shields are critically low, down to 8%. Structural integrity in Sectors 4 and 7 is compromised. Damage control teams report multiple breaches sealed temporarily, but those areas remain weak." Harper's jaw tightened. "How long before we can restore shield capacity to a sustainable level?" Chen tapped rapidly on her console. "If all repair teams maintain their current pace, it will take several hours. But we don't have that kind of time. The enemy is preparing another wave." A low hum vibrated through the deck as the ship's fusion reactors strained to their limits, powering the remaining defenses and weapon systems. The warship's quantum cannons were charging for what might be the next, and possibly last, major salvo. Outside, the vast darkness of space was suddenly lit by streaks of enemy fire and counterattacks from Earth's warship, whose weapon systems roared to life despite the damage. But a new alarm suddenly rang out across the bridge, a signal unlike the relentless bombardment or incoming missile warnings. "Commander," Chen said, eyes wide on the screen, "we're detecting a cyber intrusion. Someone has breached Aegis's security protocols and is attempting to override core systems." Harper froze for a moment. A warship's AI was its brain and nervous system. Losing control or having it compromised could mean death, not just for the ship, but for everyone aboard. "Isolate the breach. Deploy all countermeasures immediately," Harper ordered. Chen's fingers flew over the controls as the AI battled the intruder's code, fighting to preserve the ship's operational integrity. But the sophistication of the attack was unlike anything the crew had encountered. It was subtle, like a ghost infiltrating the vessel's circuits. "Trace attempt initiated," Chen continued, her voice tense. "But the source is heavily masked, routing through multiple nodes. Whoever is doing this is highly skilled." Harper swallowed hard. The external threat was bad enough. But an internal saboteur, someone who knew the ship's layout, its weaknesses, could be catastrophic. As the battle outside raged on, inside the ship, the corridors were alive with different turmoil. Security teams scrambled through passageways, responding to reports of breached bulkheads and sabotage attempts. In the dimly lit maintenance shafts, a lone figure in a stealth suit moved like a shadow, silent, deadly, and determined. The intruder's suit rendered them nearly invisible to sensors and cameras, allowing them to slip through the ship's labyrinthine interior. Their target, Aegis itself, the ship's AI core, where critical systems were centralized. Back on the bridge, Harper's comm crackled. "Commander, security teams report skirmishes in Sector 12. Enemy infiltration confirmed. Multiple hostiles engaging our forces." Harper's lips pressed into a thin line. "Divert reinforcements. Seal off Sector 12 immediately. No one in or out until we regain control." The warship lurched under a barrage of enemy fire. The hull groaned, and lights flickered as systems fluctuated under the assault. "Shields at 5% and falling," Chen reported grimly. "We're running on backup power in several systems." "Malik, how's weapons status?" Harper demanded. "Quantum cannons operational, but at reduced capacity," Malik answered. "Plasma turrets still online, but overheating. Point defenses are holding for now. Then we do what we can. Keep firing. We'll grind them down." Suddenly, the ship's AI, Aegis, alerted them to a critical failure in life support systems in Sector 7. The atmosphere was rapidly becoming unbreathable. "Life support compromised," Chen confirmed. "Emergency purges initiated, but repair teams can't reach the area due to boarding resistance." Harper's chest tightened. "Send additional security squads. We can't lose those areas." As firefights erupted deeper within the ship, the intruder neared their target. The AI core was a room bathed in cold blue light, humming with power. The intruder connected a small device, wires snaking into the terminals as they began injecting malicious code designed to cripple Aegis. On the bridge, Chen called out, "Commander, we've traced the hacker's location. Sector 12, near the core." Harper didn't hesitate. "Send an elite squad to intercept. Do whatever it takes to stop them." As the elite team moved toward Sector 12, the enemy strike group outside renewed their assault. Dozens of fighters and bombers attacked from all sides, taking advantage of the warship's weakened shields. Harper stood firm. "Fire at will. Prioritize their missile launchers and fighter squadrons." The warship's weapons spat plasma and quantum blasts, decimating incoming squadrons. Yet every strike carried a cost. Weapon systems sparked, power fluctuated, and the crew grew more exhausted. In the corridors, the elite squad cornered the intruder. The stealth suit shimmered as the intruder activated a cloaking device, disappearing from sight. Gunfire erupted, lighting the passageways with bursts of blue energy. Harper held her breath as the firefight intensified, the outcome uncertain. At last, a pulse grenade exploded, disabling the cloaking device. The intruder was revealed, a figure masked but clearly trained for sabotage and infiltration. "Detain them," Harper ordered. The intruder fought fiercely, but was overwhelmed. Bound and restrained, they were brought aboard the bridge for questioning. "Commander, the enemy flagship is charging a new weapon, something far more destructive than before," Chen warned. "We need to act fast." Harper nodded, exhaustion and resolve mingling in her expression. "Prepare the quantum cannons. Target their flagship with everything we have." The warship's guns fired again, beams of destructive energy tearing through the darkness toward the enemy's heart. The flagship shuddered under the assault, shields flickering as explosions erupted across its hull. Outside, the enemy fleet began to break, battered and demoralized. Harper's voice was calm but firm. "This is our moment. Push forward. We will not fall." The warship, though battered and scarred, surged ahead. Humanity's indomitable will made manifest in steel, fire, and unyielding spirit. As the battle raged on, Harper allowed herself a moment to think about Earth, the fragile blue jewel spinning silently in the vastness of space. It was for that world, and everyone on it, that they fought. The warship was their shield and sword, and as long as it sailed the stars, hope endured. The warship had endured beyond expectation, but the battle was far from over. Outside the thick, reinforced hull, the enemy fleet was reeling, battered and desperate. Inside, the crew moved with grim determination, patched together by adrenaline and sheer willpower. Commander Harper stood on the bridge, the weight of command pressing down harder with every moment. Lieutenant Chen's eyes never left the tactical displays. "Commander, the enemy flagship is retreating, but sending a decoy fleet ahead to cover their escape." Harper narrowed her eyes. "We can't let them slip away. Target the decoys and prepare to pursue." The warship surged forward, engines pushing the battered vessel through the darkness. The enemy decoys darted in erratic patterns, firing volleys of plasma and missiles designed to slow pursuit. But the warship's weapon systems, though damaged, still packed a formidable punch. Captain Malik coordinated the firing solutions. Quantum cannons locked on, firing in 3, 2, 1. Beams of energy tore through the enemy ships, breaking up formations and scattering fighters. Still, the enemy fleet wasn't ready to concede. Suddenly, a new alert sounded. Communications intercepted chatter indicating a possible second wave of enemy reinforcements, unseen until now. Chen looked up, alarmed. "Commander, reinforcements en route. Unknown number. Estimated time to arrival. 15 minutes. Harper's mind raced. "We don't have time for another fight. Prepare to jump to hyperspace as soon as possible. We need to regroup and repair." As the crew scrambled to ready the ship's jump engines, a deeper danger emerged. Inside the ship, damage control teams reported critical failures in power distribution. Sabotage had left key conduits offline, and repairs were slow and difficult. Harper's heart sank. "How soon until power is restored?" Chief Engineer Ramos's voice came over the comm. "At least 20 minutes, Commander. We're working as fast as possible, but the damage is severe." Harper clenched her fists. "We don't have that long. Prioritize power to jump engines and life support. Divert from non-essential systems." The ship groaned under the strain as power was rerouted, the fusion core glowing fiercely. The crew worked feverishly, patching conduits, stabilizing reactors, and keeping the ship alive. In the medical bay, Dr. Voss tended to the wounded, her hand steady, but her face pale with exhaustion. "We need more supplies and personnel," she said quietly. We're barely keeping up. The ship's intercom crackled. Commander Harper, the captured intruder has been interrogated. They claim to be a mercenary hired by a rival faction to sabotage our mission. Harper's eyes darkened. A mercenary? That explains the precision of their attack. She knew now that the battle wasn't just a fight between Earth and a hostile alien empire. It was a tangled web of political intrigue and hidden enemies. "Secure the prisoner and continue interrogation," she ordered. "We need to know who else is involved." Back on the bridge, Chen's fingers danced over the controls. "Jump engines ready, but we need full power to initiate sequence." Harper paced, tension mounting. "Prepare for jump. All hands brace." The warship lurched as the jump engines powered up, the stars stretching into lines of light as the ship slipped into hyperspace. The endless darkness gave way to a brilliant streak of light, and for a moment all seemed still. Then, with a jarring snap, the ship emerged from hyperspace, far from the battlefield and near a friendly outpost. Harper exhaled, relief washing over her. "Status report." "Shield stable at 60%, Chen said. "Life support fully operational. We're safe, for now." The crew began immediate repairs, their movements efficient and practiced despite exhaustion. The warship had survived, but the battle was only one part of a larger war. Harper stood by the viewport, looking out at the distant stars. The fight for humanity's survival had just begun. They had proven they could endure, but the road ahead was long and fraught with peril. She turned to her officers. "We've won this battle, but the war continues. We'll rebuild, we'll fight smarter, and we'll show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." In the silence of space, the warship waited, a beacon of hope and defiance against a universe that had once dismissed humanity as weak. And now, more than ever, humanity was ready to claim its place among the stars. The warship rested in orbit above a friendly planet, its battered hull gleaming faintly in the dim light of distant suns. Commander Harper stood on the bridge, watching the steady flow of repair crews moving across the decks, the hum of engines being tuned and weapons recalibrated. After the long and brutal battle, the crew was weary but unbroken. Scars marked the ship's metal and its people alike. Losses had been severe, and many lives had been changed forever. Yet through it all, hope burned brighter than any weapon's flare. Harper's mind replayed the fierce clashes in the void, the missiles and lasers, the boarding battles fought in claustrophobic corridors, the silent cyber war that nearly crippled their own ship from within. Every victory had come at a cost, but humanity's indomitable spirit had never wavered. A comm alert drew her attention. Lieutenant Chen's voice was calm but edged with urgency. "Commander, we've received an encrypted transmission from Earth Command. They want a status report and strategic recommendations." Harper nodded. "Patch it through." The image flickered to life, a stern face of a senior admiral, framed by the insignia of Earth's fleet. "Commander Harper, your ship's survival against overwhelming odds is a beacon to all of humanity. But this is only the beginning. Intelligence suggests our enemies are consolidating power and forging alliances to crush us." Harper met the Admiral's gaze through the screen. "Understood, sir. We'll continue to rebuild and strengthen. This ship and its crew will be at the forefront of the fight." The Admiral nodded. "Good. We also need to investigate the mercenary who sabotaged your AI. There are larger forces at play. Be vigilant." As the transmission ended, Harper turned to her officers. "This warship is more than a weapon. It's a symbol, a reminder that humanity will never be pushed into the shadows." Her eyes swept across the bridge, resting on the tired but determined faces of her crew. "We've faced destruction and found strength. We've been scanned, studied, and underestimated. But now, the galaxy knows. Earth's warship is a force that cannot be ignored. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered with promise and peril alike. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with danger and sacrifice. Yet with this ship and its people, humanity had a chance, a fighting chance, to carve out its place among the stars. Harper allowed herself a rare smile. Prepare for the next mission. The fight isn't over, it's just beginning. And as the warship powered up its engines, ready to sail into the unknown, it carried with it the unyielding heart of humanity, a beacon of defiance, hope, and relentless courage.